Wednesday, the 17th of February. I'll start again. Good afternoon all and welcome to the council meeting of Wednesday, the 17th of February. Welcome the councillors, the media, the staff, and I'll call for apologies, but everyone is here, so there is none. Extraordinary business. Any items for extraordinary business? Councillor Cameron.
I have two items I'd like to bring up, please, for your consideration. One's a council resolution on the 27th of Feb from the CBD subcommittee with regards to the plaques, and the other one is a COVID-19 committee resolution, read the procurement policy with buy local.
You're moving, we received that? Yep. A seconder? Councillor Falloon. Open for debate. If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of... we'll just let you know that due to the limited numbers in the chamber today, the presentation to the cadets has been postponed, so they'll probably come in 2 weeks' time, hoping it'll be then if we're able to have them. And we won't meet any new staff or long-serving staff at today's council meeting. We'll hold that over until we can fit more people in appropriately under the COVID level. Item number 3, declarations of interest, and I'll just declare an interest on item number 18, a conflict of interest on that item, and the Deputy Mayor will chair that item when we get to that. Confirmation of the minutes, page 4, page 3 of the meeting of the 3rd of February 2021. Any alterations or additions on page 3? Page 4. So we'd like to move that was a true and accurate record of that meeting. Councillor Wilson, Councillor McMillan. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Receipt of the minutes, Methven Community Board. So we'd like to move that we receive those minutes. Councillor McMillan, Councillor Letham. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item number 6, Road Safety, Ashburton District Road Safety Coordinating Committee minutes. And so we'd like to move that we receive those minutes. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Lovett. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Councillor Mackay.
Are we allowed to ask questions when we receive minutes, or is it not the done thing?
Just wondering where you would ask questions because of our new structure, so it's probably appropriate to ask questions on it now. Yes.
Okay. NZTA report 4.1 Safe Network Program concerns are raised to what follow-up following submissions on proposal to install a wire rope medium barrier. Once finalised, will be presented to council seeking further feedback. So when it comes back, will that just be a kind of a rubber stamp, or will we have a chance to make a further submission and tell them what we think?
My thoughts on that were through the Regional Land Transport Committee long-term plan, if it's, I've probably got a few too many words in there, but it's out for consultation at the moment, and we would put a submission in, and I think we would submit along those lines. And I'll probably elaborate more when I get to the Mayor's report.
I'll wait.
Okay, but don't let it slide. Yep. The item number 7, page 2. Oh, Carol?
Just as the same, following on from Councillor Mackay, the Safer Mid-Canterbury Safe Communities projects, and we're promoting motorcycle safety. How are these, this might be appropriate for you, Liz, how are these determined? Like, why are we promoting motorcycle safety? How did that come up with men?
It's a road safety
is it a national
committee
thing that we're just doing our share?
We have a committee. Liz, you chair
Yep.
No, Daniel chairs it.
So I'll speak on behalf of the Safe Communities. So we're partially funded by ACC, and the motorcycle safety program is something that they run annually, and so Safe Communities are also going to jump on that with regards to road safety as well.
So it's nothing, can I ask a supplementary, Mr Mayor?
Yep.
It's nothing to do with, we have a lot of motorcycle mortality, accidents of motorbikes in mid-Canterbury.
All good there? Yep. Page number 10, the Biodiversity Advisory Group, meeting held on the 2nd of February. We'll move in a second, we received them. Councillor Rawlinson,
I'll move that they're correct.
Councillor Lovett.
I'll second that.
I'll put the motion, we received those minutes. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Nothing, no discussion on them? Moving over to item number 8, review of the rates remission policy. I've been reading this report and there's just a few little things that are a wee bit ambiguous in there, which I think the report still needs a wee bit of tidying up, for lack of better words. So if councillors agree, I'd move from the chair that we lay this one on the table for 2 weeks' time. Councillor Mackay?
Second.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. And the Chief Executive is aware of the small concerns, so to work through and bring the report back in 2 weeks' time. Thank you. So, over to item number 9, the review of the rates postponements policy 2018. We have Richard and Tony there. Councillors, any questions or clarification? John, Loon.
Just going back to the previous item, I presume that means we're going to have a whole new draft of the policy.
Yeah, it's laying on the table, so we can't discuss it.
Yeah,
But
okay.
you're probably right.
You may say that, I couldn't possibly.
Any questions on item number 9, the rates review of the rates postponement policy? And the recommendation is there is to roll it over as is and not consult on it. Just one question I have, Richard, is how many people are using the rates postponement now? The one on the right. Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any precise figures, but my understanding from conversations with our rates officer and the finance manager and Mr. Brake is it's very seldom used.
Yeah. Stuart?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. To continue on that answer, the COVID-19 shutdown has had no effect really on people's ability to pay the rates.
That's my understanding, sir.
If there's no further questions, someone like to move or lay?
I will move, yeah.
Lane?
Mr. Mayor will do the recommendation on page 30.
Angus,
stand.
Guy seconded. Open for debate. Oh, Angus has seconded. You'll speak to the motion, Lane?
No, I'm fine with it, the way it is going. It's hardly used and it's correct the way it is.
If you could just go off, we have another speaker. Councillor Mackay.
I think I agree with the councillor. I'm of the opinion that we have to have a policy on this so it can be used with people in dire straits. It's one of the mechanisms that they can use to get themselves back on their feet financially, if that is what is needed at the time. So I'm fully in favour of this policy. We still get the rates eventually.
Yep. Councillor Floon.
Yeah, I'm also in favour of it. To me, it's a pragmatic sort of situation, particularly where you've got an older person who's fallen into some sort of financial issues that we can actually take a charge over their house or whatever, and those rates will be cleared. And that is one of the good things about it, is at the top of page 36, postponed rates will be registered as a statutory land charge on the rating unit title. This means that council will have first call on the proceeds of any revenue from the sale or lease of the rating unit. So therefore I support.
Yeah, and there's a process that the person who applies for it has to go through. It's not just given to anyone. There's that process that needs to be followed to ensure that they know what they're getting themselves into. So that's a good backstop. Have a move in a second. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. 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 Against? Carried. Thank you, Richard. Item number 10, page 37, the mid-year performance report. And Tony is here. Any questions? Should we go through it page by page, or? And the first page is starting on 40. Just one question, Tony, you probably won't have the answer to it, is just it's on water, drinking water, and just in light of what's happened at Akaroa, are all our tanks inspected and animal and vermin proofed? You won't have the answer, might be a Neil McCann.
Yes, through the chair. We don't have a lot of tanks and big reservoirs like that, but we do inspect what tanks we do have. We don't have a roof system like those reservoirs that were that had the problems, fortunately.
Great, that's good to hear. Page 8, 41, 40 and 41. 42 and 43, which is on wastewater. 44 was on stock water. Angus.
I was just, when I read through this in the weekend, Mr Mayor, I had a wee bit of a giggle to myself. We're aiming to promote productivity of rural lands through the efficient provision of clean, reliable stock water. From memory, any time I've asked a question on how much is actually used of the stock water taken from the rivers, the answer is usually 10%. I note that's efficiency, so there's a 90% inefficient there. But I just raised it to keep the matter in front of the councillors' attention. That really is not what it says. When I ask for the figures, each time I ask, I get the 10% question scenario.
Yeah, and thanks for your comment. Through the LTP, we could change that wording if you so required. And Tony, if we did change that wording, when would we do that?
Through the chair, I actually think we have changed that wording through the LTP when we reviewed the performance framework.
Yep. Thank you. Lane.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It might not fit in here, but it's got to do with water, and it was a question that came to me earlier this week, and it is regarding water tankers. So if a water tanker brings drinking water to a farm or to a property, what is out of water, is that water checked in the truck?
So Neil, question.
Must get the water from our supply, but whether the tank is checked, I'm not aware that we physically check it, but it may be up to the person transporting it to provide those checks. So I can look into that and get back to you on that.
Thank you. I just couldn't give an answer.
Yep.
And it was a good question.
Thank you. So Neil will follow up on that.
Yeah, I know the water is fine, but it's just the transport part.
Process, yeah.
Yeah, I can add, they do need to be certified, so they'll have processes and procedures that they need to follow. It's just, I can follow up on how we check up on those processes and making sure that they comply with the certification requirements.
Councillor Cameron.
I want to talk about transportation. Shall I hang up or
Wait.
or carry on?
Hang on. I'll just hold you over, caller. Transportation.
We're on there now, thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, just some queries with regards to sealed, I just wonder if it's an inversion thing. The sealed local road network is well maintained and our target is 4%. Should that be 96 with a 4%? Because when you go to the unsealed road, our target is 50%. Just 4% sounds a bit blimmin' dismal.
I think that's Neil probably comment, the reseal, we do 4% of the network per year, is that?
That's correct.
Oh, so that's maintained, so that probably needs to be reword as well. is, if we've got is well maintained, assuming a qualitative response rather than a quantitative response, which is 4%. So that's, I'm talking about the third point down, we provide quality transportation services. And it's implying well maintained is implying a qualitative answer as opposed to a quantitative answer. I think that needs reviewing.
So perhaps it needs some work on it. I think.
Yeah, we.
What have you got?
Do you want me to hang up? But I've got,
Yeah.
might have more to say.
We've got one coming.
Thank you. I was just going to confirm that we will examine that wording and reflect the point made about what the 4% refers to.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
If I can add that, that is a mandatory measure, so the words are mandatory for us, but we can certainly clarify that it is the percentage of the network that's maintained per
That's right.
year.
Because, yeah, that's right. Because well implies that people are not complaining about the quality of the seal, isn't it? Which they constantly tend to do. Rather than we are replacing 4% of the seal.
It's a different measure. That's what. Yeah. Okay, so we'll just clarify that. Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Once more, we talk about resident satisfaction. It's amazing, isn't it? They're more satisfied with unsealed roads than they are with sealed roads. We'll give Heb 6 months to see how they go. This ends in December, this report, and they only took over in November. So, but I'll be interested to see with their sealed roads. Hopefully, they promised us it would, so I'll be interested in the next 12-month report.
Certainly will. Councillor Falloon.
Yeah, just following on from Councillor Wilson, I suppose you've got to look at the positive side. You know, unsealed roads, our improvement's gone up by 5%, but still a long way to go from 56 to 80, and sealed roads has gone up from 34 to 38. So, like Councillor Wilson, I'll certainly be looking at what sort of effect that the new contractor will have on our roading quality.
At least the arrow is pointing in the right direction. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Another question what came to me and I couldn't answer it either. With the rural roading, we're putting the shingle over those ones. How do we measure it, that what we pay for, if that's been gone on? And that was a question I couldn't answer.
Okay.
Do we check it, or do we just believe the contractor's telling us so many ton went on?
We do get weighbridge information from the trucks that deliver the material.
Okay, great. Then I've got an answer. Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Back to the roads. If I look at the 1990-20 results, we put 48,000 cubic metres of metal replaced on unsealed roads. Is that a 12-month measure?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So in 6 months, we did 39,000. So we did all basically 90% of our sealing in 6 months.
Correct.
Why was that? I can't understand why we wouldn't try.
It's a seasonal activity.
Okay, thank you.
Nothing further on roading. Over the page to waste reduction and recovery. On page 46. Public services, page 47, democracy. Councillor Wilson.
Can I just go back to the waste reduction? I
Yep.
read last night that Christchurch are now going back to accepting soft plastics in recycling. And it did say not all districts are doing that, but to question probably to Mr McCann, is that a likelihood into the future for us?
Yeah, I saw the same article and I was going to ask Craig the exact same thing, so I don't know at this stage. I'll find out from Craig, and perhaps at the next activity briefing he can share what's happening in that area.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Page 47. Oh, it looks very pleasing, doesn't it, when the residents are satisfied with the mayor and the council. I think it's a vote of confidence in the mayor.
It's just there's just 11% to convert. But again, the arrow is in the right direction. It's good. Well done. Page 48, economic development. (49) community services. Page 50, parks and open spaces. Councillor McMillan.
Sorry, I'm going to go back to economic development. So will we not get any visitor guest night information going forward? Will that come through Christchurch NZ, or is, I don't know who I'm asking, Tony, through the chair, through Christchurch NZ, or is that going to just sort of, did it miss this, this resident survey?
Thank you, through the chair. So no, it hasn't missed the survey. What's happened is Stats New Zealand have stopped collecting the information. So we're actually unable to report against this, and it won't be a measure in the next LTP.
Will we replace that measure with another measure?
Yes, we have.
We have, yeah. Which will be coming out soon for consultation. Councillor Falloon.
Yeah, council responds to parks and open spaces failures and requests within median response time. Our target is 100%. 1920 were 58. The arrows slipped slightly backwards. Is that an important statistic, or what does it actually include?
Oh, just asking clarification, John. Which one are you on?
Council responds.
Oh, page 50.
Yeah. Council responds to parks and open spaces failures and requests within median response time.
Yeah. Steve.
Morning, Council. Just through the chair, the answer to that is it is the full process of receiving a complaint, actioning it, and closing it. Up till recently, we've some of those complaints haven't been closed. They've been sorted out within 10 days, and the staff haven't taken that step of actually doing the closure. We've got measures in place to get that right. So rest assured the work has been done, but we're just not finishing that step. So.
Thank you. Recreation facilities. Just have one question on the quality gym, pool and stadium facilities, and we have under EA Network Centre as well utilised. The numbers there, are they the users or everyone who turns up at the facility, like visitors and users? Tony.
Thank you, through the chair. As I understand it, that's effectively like the door counter of those that are going to the gym, going to watch their children swim at the pool, right. Those who are swimming, those who are attending the stadium.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Page 52, regulatory services and building regulation. Carolyn.
I just want to go back again, sorry, through you, Mr Mayor, to you, Tony. The gym is well utilised. Is that 884 people going into the gym in a 6-month period? Or that was last year, 900,
sorry,
through the I can't, it's not at the...
Through the chair, that's the actual number of members to the gym in a 12-month period.
Okay, so it's not people walking through the door. No. Thank you.
Councillor Falloon.
Thank you. Middle of page 52, we provide quality building regulation services. Buildings with compliance schedules are audited each year. We're only running at 2.7%. Is this a resource issue with a number of limbs and building consents we've had so far this year, so we have not had the opportunity to go and complete those audits?
Through you, Mr Mayor, it is a workload issue, but there is a plan in place and that target will be met.
Thank you. Just a question on the building consents not processed within 20 working days. 9 consents were, out of the 209 went over. Did they go much over, or?
No, they didn't. I seem to remember the building services manager telling me that one went over by just overnight, but it's a situation that might get better before it gets worse because the workload is very high.
And it's a result of workload?
Yep.
At the moment. But they're not weeks and weeks late. No, they're only matters of days. Yep. Which is probably acceptable. District planning. Councillor Mackay.
Mr Mayor, some of you will know my past history re consents, and I am delighted that we've gone from 99.5 to 100. There must be some very good management happening in there, as well as the applicants doing a good job in presenting the application for consents. Subdivision 1 out of 35 brings it down to 98. Those are very, very good figures, Mr Mayor. Councillors around the country would be in raptures if they could get that. So if I personally can pass on appreciation, I hope it's accepted.
That can be passed on to the regulatory services team. Well done. I think there's financial penalties if you don't meet those requirements too, isn't there?
I believe there are, Mr Mayor.
Yeah, but you wouldn't know because you meet them.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for that. Over the page to 54 and emergency management. The other half of the page, land information. Page 55, regulatory compliance. Councillor Falloon.
Thank you. The one that worries me here is registered food premises are risk assessed each year, and yet we're only risk assessed 62 out of 209 premises at this stage.
Through you, Mr Mayor, again, that has been discussed with the contractor, and they have a plan in place and they will reach that target by the end of their financial year.
So they have until 30th of June to complete. Yep. Yep. No further comments on the report? Well, I think it's a very good report overall. It's yeah, well done to all involved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is number 11, but we do have our visitors here, so we might move to them now. And we have the Ashburton Service Level Alliance and the Canterbury Clinical Network update. And we have Gordon, Guthrie, Jules and Jenny, if you'd all like to come through. And I think you've just got to keep your distances as well, because of, and who better would know about this, being in the health system. So thank you. So welcome all. Gordon, I'll let you introduce your team if you like.
Thank you.
And then present the report.
I think tēnā koutou for a start. Actually, we better start off correctly, had we not. I think most of you know me, but for the record, I'm Gordon Guthrie and I'm the chair of the Ashburton Service Level Alliance. With me today, I do have Jules Wilk from CCN, I'm going to say, let's say Canterbury Clinical Network to get it in full for a start. She is the Service Level Alliance facilitator and manages the day-to-day stuff, basically. And of course, Jenny Gill, she's a member of the Alliance. Her role there is providing important insight into the interface with the NGO sector and the community providers and groups. So we welcome that. And just again for the record, Councillor Cameron obviously is also a member of the SLAs. What are we going to talk about? Well, it's 3 years since I last talked, and there was a different group I think I talked to at that time. So what we'll do is we'll give a quick overview of the CCN and SLA process, what it looks like, how it's structured, and most importantly, how it fits within our community. Then we'll look at where our key focus areas are and how our work plan's looking, what we're up to at the moment, and how we're progressing some of those key areas. And we'll just close quickly just with what some of the numbers are saying, what the data looks like on some of the monitoring and research stuff that we're doing. So, Jules, it's your presentation.
Ko Jules Walker Tapuengoa, ko Aotea Kai Ruruku Whaka Takana mō Canterbury Clinical Network, nō rewa. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Greetings to you all. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you for having us here today, and I'd just like to acknowledge Gordon and Jenny, their contribution to the Ashburton Service Level Alliance in the time that I've been involved in the SLA is truly magnificent. So it's great to be surrounded by such supportive and locally active people. Right, so we just got a PowerPoint with a few slides, and we'll just start off with giving you, as Gordon said, an overview of the Canterbury Clinical Network and how we work. We have an alliance approach to our work, which is a simple concept. For those of you not familiar with the CCN alliance approach, it can feel nebulous when compared to our traditional hierarchical structures, but it can help to think of alliances being simply built on a concept that more can be achieved by working collaboratively, and that's how we choose to work compared to working alone. We see continued adoption of the alliancing way of working across other organisations, especially in complex environments where there's a lot of dynamics, a lot of need to be flexible in our work and responsive to change and complexity, which is pretty much all health. Our alliance partners consist of 12 signed partners who have signed an alliancing agreement. This document, rather than specifying what the alliances will do, just captures the principles of the alliancing way of working and how they'll work together. There's a broad range of partners that come under the Canterbury Clinical Network, as you can see. So the Canterbury Clinical Network, or CCN, we run a work program, which I'm a project facilitator for. Our work falls into three main areas. So we have alliance groups, which the Ashburton SLA is part of the alliance group framework. We've workshop and co-design events, and we have models of care work. So within the alliance group, that's pretty much where the bulk of the work is done. We have work streams, for instance, the rural health work stream, service level alliances, which I'll refer to as the SLAs, which is obviously Ashburton SLA, and service development groups and other work groups as well. So alliances or groups are established over a period of time, and they are in response to an area of recognised need. So that's how they form. We bring clinicians and consumers around the table who essentially lead the work alongside a chair and a facilitator. And a work plan is developed and wrapped around the identified areas of need, and an alliance is formed. So, as I said, that does make up the bulk of CCN's work program, but we also do workshops and co-design events, typically like one-off events, drawing on the expertise of a diverse group of people to contribute ideas to a specific topic when that arises. So, for example, the maternity strategy recently, and then Te Hawa Taha, which is the smoking cessation service. So CCN was involved in co-design events around those two pieces of work. And lastly, our models of care, which is engaging community in a local service development. So this has been applied in rural areas by CCN to help communities identify priorities needed locally to improve access especially. And envisage long-term that this will be an area that CCN continues to work and engage with providers and community in ongoing development of these services. CCN alliancing groups are consistent consistent in their approach. Across all those three areas I've just spoken about of the Alliance programs, there are some key factors which, as I've mentioned, it's a clinical and consumer-led style of working, members around the table, perspectives of their areas, not representatives. So they are expected to bring their perspectives, not the needs of their organisations. And so it's a big picture thinking person that's required to sit around an Alliance table. We're data informed, that we use data to drive and monitor change, and within the Alliance gives confidence to do the right thing, and essentially the idea is that the funding will follow. We always work at CCN with person whānau at the centre of everything we do, and work to get consensus on decision making, which isn't always straightforward, but we achieve success through our structure, through the Alliance service team, and then up to the Alliance leadership team, or ALT, and support with our processes as well. This next slide, I'll leave some copies on the table here if you're interested in picking up. I don't expect you to be able to decipher what that means, but it's a really good infographic overview of the Canterbury Clinical Network structure. So at the centre, the little green oval is the program office team, and that's where I form part of the work. So essentially that's the engine room to support all the work progress. ALT sits as the umbrella organisation over the top of all our work, and it's a group of selected leaders from across the system who provide strategic direction and oversight to our work. The chair of ALT, the Alliance Leadership Team, is Dr. Don Elder, and he replaced Sir John last year. So you can see examples of the service level alliances. Well, you probably can't, I apologise, but we have Ashburton, for instance, the community services, Manaake, population health and access, immunisation, SLA, laboratory, pharmacy and urgent care. So that's where the Ashburton SLA sits into our structure. We run work streams of the older health of older people work stream, child and youth health, mental health and the rural health work stream. And there are overlaps, of course, with the Ashburton SLA and work streams, especially the rural health work stream. The role of the DHB is often questioned, and it's good to clarify that there's statutory accountability for the health services. They cannot contract out of that. So while the Alliance has been used to distribute leadership for the design and development of services, it doesn't take away the responsibility of the DHB. So the DHB is a funder, contractor for services. We have a planning and funding representative on our Alliance for the Ashburton membership, and that is Cathy O'Neill, and the DHB can choose not to respect Alliance decisions, but the threshold for doing so would have to be very high. So we work closely with the DHB. Another infographic that I'll leave a copy of if you're interested is the strategic focus of CCN for 2019 to 2024. In early 2019, CCN held a workshop with leaders across the system through health and social sectors and consumers to come up with 4 identified key priorities. So meaningful engagement, prioritising equity, redefine our alliance, and productive partnerships were 4 key areas, and I'll leave that information for you to look at more closely if you're interested. But that forms the backbone of the focus of the CCN program work. Look, I'll move on to the Ashburton SLA work now. So hopefully you've got a broad overview of where the our SLA fits into the CCN program. It was established in 2015, and we've got Jenny and Gordon who have been there since day one. Essentially, the purpose of the SLA is to recommend how to best allocate health services funding and systemise service provision across the district. So, and also to ensure access and service equity to the population within the funding available. So they are our core functions. So the next obvious question is who's on the SLA. So we have member perspectives who are elected or nominated to go on to the SLA, and they sign a agreement. So we have perspectives from general practice and practice nurse, Māori and Pacifica, an allied health perspective, the Ashburton Hospital, pharmacy, Carolyn, mental health, the tertiary services, clinical director. In general practice, we have a vacancy there currently, which we're recruiting for. We've brought in consumer perspectives and a youth perspective from St John, a planning and funding perspective, as I've already spoken about. Pegasus Health and Waitaha are represented, so that's our PHOs by their rural managers, and myself as the facilitator, and our independent chair, Gordon. So a good group of people with a lot of good connection into the communities here. Every year we put together a work plan, and the Ashburton SLA work plan comes under 4 key objectives. Firstly, safer, efficient transfers of care for the elderly was identified as a key priority. A couple of years back, a workshop was run to consult within the community to put together a frail elderly pathway, identifying issues in the frail elderly journey. And a plan was developed, and we're making our way through that. There's a couple of areas that we're still working on, and one of those is enrolment process for aged residential care, or ARC facilities. And we are in the process of looking at where to go next with that, with engaging ARC facilities and general practice, and consulting with consumers within the residential facilities as well. We look at models of care, including the house GP model as an option that may help with the situation with enrolment in the aged residential care facilities, and make suggestions or give oversight on other direction that could be taken. And at the centre of this is often the workforce, which is key to making pathways successful. So we look at different models of care and what's been used in other areas, especially rural. Health One is, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's an IT platform which connects patient information, and a part of the frail elderly pathway also is to try and get access to Health One for sharing patient information for aged residential care facilities. So there are 2 pieces of work that is still outstanding from the frail elderly pathway, which we continue to work on. Improving equitable access to primary care for all populations, including Māori and Pacifica, migrant and called. So the work we do in here is essentially around enrolment at general practice. And mid-June last year, we put together a referral pathway. I'll just flick through to that now as we're speaking. All GP practices are aware of and agree to following the pathway to assist people to enrol in general practice. So it came to our attention that there are individuals in this community that are having difficulty enrolling or transferring between general practices. So everybody is on board and agreed that if there's a new patient wanting to enrol in an Ashburton practice, or to transfer, that the general practice is obliged to make contact with the appropriate PHO, Primary Health Organisation, which will either be Pegasus or Waitaha, and at that point the navigator from Waitaha or the rural health manager from Pegasus will work with the patient to find a general practice for them to enrol in. We've been collecting data also from patients presenting at AAU who are unenrolled, and also patients who St John are picking up in the community who aren't enrolled. And some people, some patients who are presenting aren't actually eligible to enrol, so the numbers have been quite interesting. It's from June to the end of December, we picked up 81 people, and those people were referred to the navigator at Waitaha, who then contacts them directly to assist them to see where the issue are and issues are and what can be done to help. So that is one piece of work that the Service Level Alliance is continuing to monitor, which has been interesting. We've got a cross-section of Māori Pacifica, but equally Filipino and South American patients presenting, which has been interesting. So that's a piece of work that we've put around improving enrolment process in Ashburton. And obviously that data dashboard, of those 81, 41 people have been supported to enrol, so have found practices. And there's always some still in progress, so I think there's about 10 in progress still. From that area of work also, we continue to work with access to acute care and co-design recommendations. So in the area of cultural competence, last year the SLA working group was formed, and we held a hui at Hakateri Marae to come up with an action plan to support the SLA initially in ways of increasing our cultural competence, and then looked at opportunities within the community. So that working group is currently underway, working with the PHOs jointly to look at ways to increase cultural competence in the healthcare workforce in Ashburton, with a good number of initiatives to roll out there. We continue to support the Call Your GP 24/7 messaging as well through advertising, and also on our work plan there was a piece on telehealth, and rather than this being a Ashburton focused, all the SLAs and the work streams have worked together to join in capturing knowledge from the Transalpine Telehealth Group, which has been set up to work on the bigger picture part of this work. So obviously telehealth is very topical, and we're waiting for their terms of reference from this group to progress our next steps locally. An area that was identified on our work plan as missing, and we added it as we went, was sexual health service provision in Ashburton and accessibility. So we've got a working group that is formed with the from the SLA, and initially we'll be undertaking a stock take to see what sexual health services, or gap analysis really, to see where we can assist. This has come out of the family planning service being pulled last year, and the Hype and Base Youth Centre setting up a sexual health clinic since, which is fantastic. We've just been working alongside them with that, but we've also identified that youth is one cohort of people in the community, and there are other people within the community that are missing out on sexual health services. So it's a good piece of work for the SLA as well. It's in a working group underway. Mental health is an area. There's a workshop planned, a CCM workshop, which is looking like April, May, to come together to look at mental health services for over 65s, and the SLA will be involved with that as well. Just a couple of areas that we monitor, apart from the AAU data and the St John referral data of unenrolled patients. We monitor the acute plans, which are the electronic shared care plans, which sit in the Health One platform, which I just spoke about, and the advanced care plans, which are planning for end-of-life wishes. So both of these plans are electronic plans, and we just monitor how the uptake of those is going and which they're heading in the right direction. General practice create acute plans and advanced care plans, and some are created at the hospital as well. Just wanted to acknowledge the Community and Social Recovery Needs and Capacities COVID Times report by Sarah Wiley. We've worked closely with Liz and Leslie on this, and looking at the action plan that's been created around this work, and looking at the Ashburton Service Level Alliance work plan and the overlap between the action plan created from this piece of work. So the SLA is contributing in the areas of cultural competence, which I spoke about, our action plan that was formed out of the Hakatere Marae hui, and the mental health area as well, with a stocktake, which Chris is undertaking, with the help of the wider SLA and DHB planning funding, and the workshop, as I mentioned, which is coming up. Sexual health was identified in both plans, which is great, and we've spoken about that, and also the telehealth. So we just continue to work alongside the initiatives of that community project. It's a great example of both all of us working together, really. Yeah. Good crossover. So obviously we're all identifying similar needs in the community, which is great. Our 21-22 work plan is up for consideration, and we'll be coming together as an SLA next week to discuss direction for our work in the future for the next year. And around the SLA table, we'll have members who will bring identified areas which they would like the SLA to work on, or the work group, which I haven't spoken about, but every month there's an operational work group which meets to drive forward the work of the SLA as well. So that completes the presentation on the Canterbury Clinical Network, an overview of the Alliance programs way of working, and then more specifically the Ashburton SLA work and the Ashburton Working Group work. Look forward to any feedback on direction or areas of interest where you've identified needs within the community that the SLA can wrap our membership's expertise and drive around, or the any work that the work group can also at an operational level assist in doing. So that's all from us.
Thanks, Jules. Jenny, did you have anything you're supporting to add?
Thanks, Jules. Look, really, I'd just like to say it's a privilege to be involved with the SLA and having Gordon as the chair. Jules does a terrific amount of work for our community, given the number of hours that you have, and it's fabulous having Carolyn on board. It is, in the words of Sir Don Elder, it's a whole of system, and we need to hear from consumers and from people like yourselves around the table about the health needs in our community. We'd just really like to hear if there's any concerns or any ways of working collaboratively.
Great, thanks for that. And we do have a question, Councillor Brown.
Yes, I do. Thank you for your presentation. I've been trying to follow it as good as I can. There was one part you talked about the community, Pacifica, migrants, Maoris, and cold. Well, cold, I don't know what it is. All I could make out of this can all large Dutchmen join. What is cold? I'm not sure.
It's a very good question, and I apologise. Acronyms are the death of the health system. Thank you for pointing that out. CALD is the Culturally and Linguistically Diverse Group. Yeah.
I was not far off.
CALD.
Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask you about your focusing on mental health over 65s, and I'm thinking with COVID, why if focusing on a younger age group, because we know there is issues and problems out there, and the access isn't that great.
Yeah, so the reason it was focusing on that cohort was that it was identified that there was needs and gaps in that service. So what they are and how they look like and what the solution will be for that cohort will fall out of the workshop findings. But you're right, there's need across the board, in all age brackets.
Good. Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you, and thank you for that report. I learned a lot. But I've got 3 questions, if I may. My first one is around elderlies and safer, efficient transfers of care. Now, I sit on the Total Mobility Committee, and we meet every second month, but they've been trying to set up some dialogue with the hospital here over elderly patients being discharged late in the evening you're probably aware of this.
We are aware of this, yeah.
Late in the evening, and particularly when they live alone and they've got no care. And this came to our attention by the taxi drivers who take them home. And he cited a case of an elderly lady quite some months ago she'd been taken into the hospital and had no food in the fridge, no milk for a cup of tea or anything, and yet he had to take her home at 10 or 11 o'clock at night because she didn't get admitted. And he said, well, I'm not really the caregiver, but he did make sure she was comfortable. How do we address that?
Yeah, so that's a good example of a pathway that's in place at the hospital, and it's identifying the gaps in the service. So the question is, how could that happen? Why? Why would that need to happen? And that's exactly the sort of situation that we take back to the operations group, and we have Bernie on the working group and on the SLA, and we speak directly to those issues, which they come up with. Palliative care has been recently a topic that the working group discussed at an operational level, with issues with service as well. So that's good, and we are aware of that situation that you're speaking of.
We'll make sure that gets to the next week on the agenda. So.
Great, thank you. And
we cover an elderly care piece of work on the agenda every time, so things pop in and out constantly. So yeah, if we don't know about them, we can't wrap our system around them.
Thank you, and that's exactly why Total Mobility was trying to bring it to the attention of the right people. So thank you for that. Second question, if I may, is what makes a person ineligible to be enrolled with a doctor's practice?
Yeah, so it's to do with work visas. Yeah, and I'm lacking on the actual detail, but there is a specific process in which people do not meet the criteria.
So what happens to those people if they need medicines or they need assistance?
Yeah, so they obviously can be seen at and after hours, or people are coming through to Christchurch, or they're showing up at the AAU, and of course they will be seen, but they can't necessarily or are not eligible to enrol in a general practice. So their healthcare needs can still be met.
Okay, and finally, telehealth, is that Zooming and telephone discussions where to save doctors' times it can be done in the other method?
Yeah, part of, yes, it's a very broad terminology for a big area of work that's going to be quite important in the future way of how we work in health. So yes, it does encompass that. And the Transalpine group that's been set up, we're dying to see their terms of reference to see what areas they are actually focusing on. So we relay that information back to the SLA and the wider alliance groups. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Just before I go to John, just to question myself on Diane's first question was around the care of the elderly, and at the moment we have a little van that picks people up and takes them to Christchurch for appointments, and they get picked up early in the morning. They have the appointment at the hospital, wherever in Christchurch, and then they hang around all day and come back at night. For an elderly person, that's quite difficult, very tiring. Why does the professional not come to Ashburton? Is that something that you could progress with?
Well, that's it's a good example of an issue with a pathway or process, and it's good to be aware of it. If people just go along with the process and accept it as status quo, if no one asks the question, then it never gets raised. So it's great that these sorts of issues, and they're exactly the sort of examples which really have good cut through when it comes to talking to the people who've arranged that service at the DHB, to the planning and funding level, who's funding it and how it's operating. So fantastic to know examples like that of the community needs, and if not, they're being met. But it's common sense, isn't it? It's not a great day out for a lot of people.
No, it's a very long day for an elderly person who needs medical care as well, so they're not 100% to start with.
Yeah, exactly.
So if we look at that, it'd be great. John?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. The thing I'd like to know is, how do you assess / measure the success of your work plans and goals?
So we report quarterly to ALT, and we in our reporting we track our progress. So it's a lot to do with action plans, which are specific to work groups. So I mentioned the cultural competence work plan and the sexual health working group, and so they're tracking to Q1 to 4 with reporting on goals. So some of it's data driven, and some of it is at a consultation level, what's been achieved and reports generated. So, and then obviously outcomes and delivery. So a good example would be referral or picking up the unenrolled population of Ashburton and tracking the numbers through AAU and St John, and then referring those people with their details through to the Waitaha PHO navigator, who then directly contacts those people. So that is one of the areas that is reported quarterly, and we're watching those numbers, tracking. So at the moment we're getting between 10 and 12 referrals to the Waitaha navigator. We'll know we're succeeding when there's no referrals coming through, because that would mean that there's nobody turning up at AAU who's not enrolled, who is entitled to be enrolled. Yeah. So that's just one example, but with the cultural competence work, we're going to pass this over the SLA next Thursday, and there we've got some outcome-focused goals around rewriting position descriptions, trying to increase the diversity of the workforce, and rewriting adverts and the way we advertise for healthcare roles. And so the results will hopefully speak for themselves if we can see a more diverse population having the confidence and feeling safe to apply for healthcare roles. So we're working directly with the PHOs at that level to try and change how we outwardly invite or not people to apply. Yeah, so there are just a couple of examples, but lots more.
Just to add to that, in health I've never seen so much data. There's data everywhere, so there's plenty of things to track. But just to add that from a chair's point of view, what I like to see on the goals, there's outcomes there, but I like to break it down into time-limited sort of passages of work. And I see it's quite easy to track that way, and I call them sprints, and then you have a scrum afterwards. So that's how you actually got to break that down. That's how you can actually achieve things by little bites.
Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Guthrie, the South Canterbury District Health Board, they provide some services on a limited scale in this district. They're not on your list. Is there a reason? That's one question.
In my time with the SLA, we've had a presentation once from South Canterbury. How can I put this? Looking behind me. District health boards are like a lot of these things. They probably don't work well together sometimes.
Gordon, this is being live streamed to people at home as well.
Yeah, no, I understand. So, so we take some care there. So it is quite boundary orientated, and nothing much I can do about that.
The second question has a comment. May I make a comment then ask a question?
Okay.
Yeah. Mr Guthrie, I actually think the service level has actually worked much superior to the old district health committee that we used to have, and has its finger on the button, so well done. The question I have is the district council's involvement. I know of 2 occasions when the hospital or hospital facilities have been in question, and at the end of the day it's usually been down to the district council to apply their appropriate political pressure wherever that has to be for the reinstatement or the non-closure or the something being built instead of a truck being pulled in with an operating theatre on it. Do you see the service level alliance doing that job in the future, or falling back to the council? If so, what's the council involvement with the service level alliance?
I think we need to work together there, because we can only recommend as an SLA. We have no control over the funding or the direction of what some of that decision making is at Ashburton Health Services. We all do work collaboratively, so we can we can give them some suggestions, but I would suggest it's better that we work with you as a council. And if you come aware of a situation that we should be working together on, let's work together and make it a two-pronged approach if there's something like that, as serious as that needs worked on.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you, and I just wanted to make a comment through the chair and thank you for meeting with Leslie and I on behalf of the Caring for Communities group, and also being involved in our action plan, which we have in response to the research that was done. So it's great having you on board, and Bernie attends our meetings. We had a meeting yesterday, and hopefully the information from those groups is getting back to you, and Jenny also attends those meetings, so it's going back to you as well, because there's a lot of stuff discussed in our Caring for Communities meetings as well. So thanks for that.
Great. No more questions, comments? Great. Jules, would you be happy if that copy of your PowerPoint was put on our website, because this has been live recorded?
Sure.
And may help the people at home to look at your PowerPoint to see what you were talking about, because they won't have seen that. If you're happy with that, that was great. And Gordon, Jules and Jenny, thanks very much for coming in today and presenting to us. It's very much appreciated, and we appreciate the work you do for our community as well. So well done, and thank you. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Okay. Should we go back to it? Okay, that's all right. Just one housekeeping matter, councillors. I didn't receive the, have a recommendation there to receive the 6-monthly mid-year performance report. So I would move in a second that we receive that. Councillor Cameron, Councillor Mackay, all in favour, please say aye. Correct, thank you. Carried. So that's tidied that up. Item number 11, and it is the Water Services Bill submission. And we have Tony and Andy here for any discussion on it. Would you, any comments, questions, Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to compliment the submitters, especially regarding the requirement for small suppliers to comply. Any property which services more than one dwelling is considered a water supplier and subject to the requirements of the bill. We need that very well clarified, and I'm very pleased that you've got that right up the top in our submissions, because for many farmers in our district who may have a water supply and 3 or 4 residences on that property, it could be quite challenging for them to comply. So we don't know what it is yet, and there's no point in panicking. But I just want to say thank you for making that point right at the beginning, because it could be very serious for particularly our mid-Canterbury rural people.
Thank you. Councillor Floyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I think it's a very, very well put together submission. I certainly agree with everything that's in it, particularly mentioning the small rural communities. In here I think of the river mouth communities such as Rangitata and Rakaia. I mean, speaking on behalf of one, it's very difficult to know exactly what we've got to do, but we know we've got to spend some money to do it. So I think this is a very pragmatic submission, and one just hopes that it's listened to.
To Andy?
Yeah, if I may. Well, I appreciate the comments. This was, the bulk of this work was done by Rachel Thomas, but I must admit, in terms of the concerns that we have around the rural supplies, and particularly these new supplies, it's just simply there's a lack of clarity around what the requirements will be. They do have some information contained in the bill which will basically say that they can create subsets of requirements for smaller supplies, but they don't say what they're going to be. So at the moment, it's that uncertainty that we're concerned about.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to make a comment. Yeah, I'm pleased you have put in there it needs to be strongly worded, because no way can a council at the end of the day go out on farm and check houses when you've got 3 different wells and houses on different wells or whatever, and it's just going to be so complex and messy. We just don't want them going down that line, full stop.
Andy or Tony, is there a comment on there about a drinking supply that's also a stock water supply, and the level of one's got to meet a certain high level where possibly very little water is used for drinking? Is there comments in there about that?
Yeah, we have identified that as another one of our concerns. Basically, there's a requirement for a supplier who ought to reasonably know the supply is being used for potable use. Then that water supply would be considered covered by the requirements. And the thrust of our submission is that we would like clarity again around how a supplier of that type would demonstrate that it is not anything other than a stock water supply. What would be the requirements to demonstrate that satisfactorily? Yeah,
so the requirement to treat the source of it and deliver it where stock were drinking 98% of it and humans were to drink 2%, they could just treat the little bit instead of one great big plant that treated the lot. So that's what we're trying to capture.
Yeah, and there's certainly some information around point of supply or point of use treatment, which again, because of the way it's structured, poses some other concerns for us or for those suppliers, in that the official point of supply changes, and it basically lengthens the amount of pipework that the supplier will be responsible for. So there are some risks in there that are identified in that as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Councillor Flynn?
Yeah, just looking at it from ADC's point of view, this is clause 27 or point 27. The bill amends the Local Government Act to place new requirements on territorial authorities. So not only are the territorial authority responsible for the quality of the water that we supply through our schemes, we're responsible for the quality of all water supplied to all water users. So that, obviously, if we've got to employ extra staff to do that, it's going to have an effect on rates.
Of course. Hamish?
Just 2 things in relation to this area. Of course, this is one part of the Three Waters Reform program, and when the government talks about the amount of cost that is ahead of water suppliers, these are some of the costs that they are referring to, and why indeed they are motivated to have structural reform, because they can see the impost it may well have on small councils, small communities, and believe therefore there needs to be a better system. So these are not oversights or blind spots in the legislation. They're quite deliberate, but they form part of the overall picture. In terms of those small water supplies, in a conversation with Bill Bayfield, who chairs the interim CEO rather of Te Mata Arawai, they believe there are more than 70,000 of these across New Zealand, and they're still counting them. So the magnitude of the issue around how these small suppliers or the stock races that have some water, or the farm that has several households connected, how they are going to deal with all those across the country is a very live issue for the regulator right now. And again, I think our submission will be one of many that highlights the magnitude of the uncertainty of what all of this means. But I guess my point is that the government is well aware of it, has deliberately put it in the regulations, is trying to ensure the safe drinking water for all New Zealanders. not just those that live in cities and towns or where there's a big supply. They want safe water for all New Zealanders, hence the reform process that we're all working through.
Supplementary? Yep. So therefore, how does this possible new regulation work in with the possible changes to our three waters authorities?
Well, that's what I'm saying. If the reform proceeds, if this council decides to stay in the reform process or opts in or doesn't opt out, whatever the right language is, then the new entity will pick up all the responsibilities that are listed currently as a territorial authority in this legislation. So either the council, if you keep it, will be responsible, or the new entity, if it goes across to that, will be the responsible entity.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just thinking, looking at the small suppliers, and especially at the farming side of it, if they're bought into the scheme, every farm would have to then have to pay something into the national water, would they?
The issue is the standard of the water, the guaranteed standard of the drinking water. So the regulations are about how does the end user of the water, how can they guarantee that the water meets the standards? That's the issue. So however that is to be done involves regulation, testing, monitoring, holding to account, cost, whatever, all those implications. But at the end of the day, the government is motivated to have every New Zealander with safe drinking water.
So there's a recommendation there. Someone like to move? We received the report and approved the submission to the Health Committee about the Water Services Bill attached as Appendix 1. Councillor Brown. Councillor Lovett. Can I speak to the motion, Councillor Brown?
I'm fine. No, we had enough discussion about it. I'm quite happy with what it is and how we're going. Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the recommendation. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Tony. And I note the author of the report. She hasn't been reporting for a while. So next, number 12, the financial variance report. Have you got a number 12 in your agenda? You have? Good. Separate item. Oh, that's fine. The financial variance report, you have that? Okay. So if you go back one and then the variance report is sitting on your Stella.
It's a separate attachment.
It's a separate attachment, yeah. So shall we go through that page by page, or do you want to? We'll go through it reasonably quickly.
No question.
On mine is not actually numbered, that one, but that's fine. I'll go to the page 2. Councillor McMillan.
I've got a question on page 3.
3, yeah.
Just querying what the finance income is. I see it.
Yeah.
1,1222% of budget. So is that correct, or is there something that anyone can you see that? So it's on page 3
in the
revenue. Yep. Finance income. No. Oh, sorry, Stella page. Sorry. Income and expenditure summary, page 4 of Stella. Sorry.
And it's under revenue rates, no.
Revenue, finance income.
4.2 million. Would that be a loan, would it?
Through Mr. Mees, it'll be associated with the movement of loan money.
Do you want that to be clarified, or are you happy with that answer? Page number 5. Oh, John.
Yeah, just on the same income and expenditure summary, I note that fees and charges are running at 43% now that we're 6 months in it, I thought it would have been closer to 50%. Is that a delay in charging? Because it's certainly not COVID related.
No, indeed, your second comment is actually the correct one. It is COVID related, because the impacts of COVID on places like the A Network Centre were still being felt at the 1st of July. And so some of the revenue has been slow to get back to pre-COVID levels.
And you'll obviously be working at the other side of the ledger as well. If the income is not there, you'll be monitoring the expenditure.
And working really hard to lift the income. Yeah.
Yeah, doing two sides to try and get them to balance. Yep, great. Page 5. 6. 7. 8. I was thinking that finance income might have been the monies from not Three Waters, but the Ashburton Relief Sewer payment. Yeah, it's up, doesn't it? Yeah.
Which was the Three Waters Reform Incentive payment from the Crown, 7.9 million.
So that's why it's wasn't budgeted for, but got. Yeah. Page 9. 10. 11. 12. 13. 14. And to see of 14 vandalism, there's a figure there which we asked for one of the activity report, I think. Yeah. So it's sitting at 48,000 against a budget of 17,000. The main reason being the toilets in the domain, which were set alight. $15, 16, 17, 18.
Can I have a question?
Councillor Wilson, yep.
Just to go back on page 16, with commercial property, waiting for titles at the business estate. Is that normal practice to have to wait so long for titles? And I'm presuming that's on the last piece that we developed.
The titles can be slow, and frustratingly so for all developers, and I guess in this case the council as the developer is caught by the wait for titles.
So why?
Not unusual.
It's not, I know, and I always want to know the why. Is it because the lawyers, it's a numbers thing getting it processed, or is it what makes it take so long? I mean, I see down at Lakewood we're waiting there too. So
yes, I don't know. I can't
know the
physically.
answer?
I don't have a detailed answer to that question. Jane, have you?
I have heard, but I don't know this for a fact, but I have been told that there are hold-ups at Lynn's.
Thank you.
Perhaps in the next report we might have an update there as to why, perhaps. Yep. Or you could send a memo out to us or something. Yep. Yep. 18. 19.
I did have another question.
Okay. Oh, go for it, right?
Sorry, on page 18, the Youth Council, I just wondered why the Youth Council has spent 76% of its budget in the 6-month period.
Just through the chair for that, if you recall, we have the new youth council coming on board, so we have that expenditure of getting their induction into place and all that lined up, and then it tends to lessen over the next few months for the rest of this financial year.
Thank you.
20. 21.
Mr Mayor. Net debt and borrowings, I see 72 external, 30 liquid assets, 41.5 net debt. Talking about the long-term plan, we've got about double that. These figures don't sort of equate what we were told the other day. It was going to be a debt of well over 100 million.
These figures are accurate as at the 31st of December.
Yes, this makes sense, these figures.
Yes.
But in our long-term plan, there's a huge debt shown, external debt.
Because we're going to do some more borrowing.
Well, I don't think we've borrowed
For the building. In the long-term plan, you'll see there's borrowing here for water supplies, upgrades and wastewater upgrades. Yeah, John?
Yeah, adding on to that, if we're taking on borrowings, we're obviously increasing our assets that we own, and included in that, there's about $17 million for water supply upgrades, wastewater, and also the new civic centre. So all of those certainly add on to the amount of borrowings that we're going to have.
And through Mr Mayor, it's exaggerated by the move from internal borrowing to external borrowing. So as we move internal debt to external debt, the external debt will grow.
(23). Councillor Flynn.
Just coming back to page 22, what we've got on there is the balance sheet as at 31 December 2020, which to me is just figures on a piece of paper. What I'd like to see is the balance sheet as of the beginning of the year. In other words, we should have there our balance sheet as of 30th of June the previous year, and then we've got something to compare to what our borrowings and what our assets were at the beginning of the period, because what this here is an interim only, and as I say, tells me not a damn thing, apart from telling me that there's figures there, but what do they compare to?
We can, we'll make a note of that and add the year start numbers as per the annual report. Yep.
Councillor Wilson.
Yes, thanks, Mr Chairman. If we go to page 25, it's got term deposits, bonds, etc., and that adds up to about 10 million. But you go back to page 22, liquid assets are 30 million.
You missed the Westpac deposit at 15 million. On page 25, Stella 25.
15, 16, 17 and 8 is 25. That's not 30 though.
You may recall Mr Brake discussing the timing of the debt, so that at any moment in time, when the loan is raised, it might materially impact on the amount of cash being held.
We have a recommendation there that we receive that report. Mover for that. Councillor Flynn, Councillor Rawlinson. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Carried. John.
Just in answer to Councillor Wilson's query, I think if he goes to the balance sheet on page 22, and if you look at the current assets, what we've got there is $35 million, which most of those would be taken as liquid assets because it includes cash and bank accounts of $13.5 million and $17 million worth of cash investments. So that pretty much is your liquid assets.
Thank you. Moving on to the item number 13, page 66, Ashburton Car Club Gravel Sprint event. And Neil, must be Neil McCann for this one. They haven't done this one before, I don't think, has it? Been done on the gravel? That's sealed. But anyway, Angus.
So move, Mr Mayor. don't think I'll be attending, but it might be difficult to get a good vantage point of the whole event.
Second that, Councillor Wilson.
Yes, I'll second that. I think they did it on a Staveley road in the past at one stage, and they've been satisfactory after it.
So obviously they reinstate the road after they've finished. Yep. Yep. A move and a second. Any discussion? Debate? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. 14, Mayor's Report. And item number 1, Regional Transport Committee. And the Regional Transport Land Program is out now for consultation. And I've got 3 points there, and I'll add another one shortly, to what I think we should submit on. And the first one is ensuring that the second Ashburton Bridge project remains in the plan on the timetable as it currently is. If you read the document, it's not there because I've focused on the early years, not the later. And 25-26, I think, is the year that it's programmed to be built. So, and I'm assured it is still there, but I think we'll submit to ensure that it is still there. The other one's the request for safe walkways to be established on the pedestrian and cycle lanes on the Ashburton Bridge that is there now, and probably could add the words there in brackets, whatever, passing bay. Yeah, I think like that. The other one, safety improvements being proposed from Rolleston to Ashburton. It's in the plan, but not in detail as what they would like to do. But you remember they did consult on earlier, and they talked about the wire ropes down the middle. I think would like to submit on that the safety improvements stay there as safety improvements, but it be in the form of a 4-lane highway. And the number 4th one was coming out of the Road Safety Committee, was safe crossing points on State Highway 1, and I think by the Domain, by the overhead bridge, and the other one was Tinwald. Rakaya would be sorted in, with those other safety improvements, I think. Well, but we can add them in. So that's, I've got Councillor Mackay first.
Mr Mayor, yes, I would agree with you, and I would go back to page 8 of the Regional Land Transport Committee, the Local Safety Committee, item 4.1, where it talks about, I asked the question about, attempted to until you reminded me it was in the Mayor's report, about the concept design of the wires down the middle of the road. If one remembers back to the consultation that they did, they were able to have the wires down the middle of the safety road with a tractor with a mower on it going along the side of the road and a car able to pass. Not for the faint-hearted, considering that it was only about an 80 horsepower tractor. And as we all know, most tractors on the road these days, some of them have dual wheels, 4 wheels, and quite a wide baler or hay rake on the back of them. And I'm trying to work out how we would pass and not get grated like a cheese grater on the wires in the middle of the road. And you pointed out the timing of the plan, so we have to make your submission, we have to make the submission now, so when they come back under the Road Safety Committee, it'll actually be too late. Am I correct?
Yeah, it could be. This is open for the month of March, I think. It's open for consultation.
Yeah, so they'll come back to us with final plans on their safety recommendation, which includes the ropes, sometime after March, presumably.
Yeah, I don't think they have a timeline of when they're going to present that. So I think they're struggling for monies to do the project.
Good. Mr Mayor, I totally agree with you. The only safety feature that can be practical and a practical nature, common sense nature, is a 4-lane highway. Then you do have room to put a rope down the middle if you want to, but otherwise there is no room in a practical sense, because the tractor they're talking about is a tiddlywinker, and the cars are probably a fast car, and then you've got a wire rope there. Oh, you wouldn't want to dream about that, Mr Mayor. It's dangerous, smacking all over it.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly agree with the four-lane highway. What about the Rakaya River Bridge? Do we also go for a four-lane on the Rakaya River?
Would one not follow the other? Would one not follow the other? It seems common sense. If you've got a four-lane highway, you'd have to have a four-lane bridge. The monies involved would be huge, but it's not our problem. We're looking at road safety here. And if that wants to sort road safety, that will sort road safety. Yep. Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to say, if you're going to include the safe crossing in Rakaya and Ashburton and Hines, could you please just put the speed limit through Rakaya too? Just remind them that we want that lowered, and also on the Rakaya Bridge. The residents up there have been asking, but I don't want that falling off. They keep telling us at road safety, we just got to keep pushing those. So that needs to be put in here as well.
I don't think lowering the speed limit through Rakaya would get into this plan. It's something. It's like this is the big plan that's in action and amongst it. So writing from the Road Safety Committee asking for that would be, I think, would be the best way. Like this is talking about big project dollars. Yeah. So certainly we could make comment to it, but I think the Road Safety Committee also needs to write to NZTA as well, asking. Yeah. And there's also Methven Skate Bike Park was mentioned there too for a safe crossing point in Methven. Councillor McMillan.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. So it's obviously not on State Highway 1, but it is on the state highway. So whether it's included in this or whether it just goes through from the Road Safety Committee.
But I think probably both angles would be worthwhile.
And at the Road Safety Committee meeting, John Keenan from NZTA said that a backstory or a sort of something about why we need those crossings and what they connect to is really important as well. So you're just not asking for one thing, you're asking for with a reason and a story.
Yeah, that makes sense. Tell the story why you need these things. Yeah. Councillor Rawlinson?
What I was going to say has pretty much been said by Lynette and Liz, but yes, that he did stress that the more we can get in the media with a backstory on these things, the more hope we have of getting there. So there was 4 from our meeting. There was West Street, Tynwald on the highway there, the one in Methven and the one in Rakaya for safe refuge points to try and get people across. So.
Yep, so we'll make note of them for the submission, and the Road Safety Committee will also send a letter as well.
Thank you.
Neil.
Just through the chair, there are 2 different categories with the NZTA in terms of funding. Some of the crossings that you're referring to probably fit into a different category, as Brian Firth has explained to me, and that wouldn't really fit into a submission for the land transport program. But look, we'll prepare the submission based on the advice from Brian and how we direct those requests, and this will come to council the next council meeting.
Yep, great. So it'll get there one way or the other.
That's correct.
It'll be in the right category.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Lane?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My question is, red road signs, there's no funds available. How expensive is a bucket of red paint?
Which page are you on?
The same page, still 4.1.
The Mayor's report?
No. I'm still on the road page.
Did that one about
page 8.
85 minutes ago.
Yeah. But we flew through it, so we won't going to go back. So he asked for red road signs painted on the road.
Oh, the red road signs. No money
and there's no funds for it. So my question is, how much is a bucket of red paint?
Yep. Should we submit that through that other, it's a safety thing, through that other, with the crossings?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay,
We
thanks
can
for
do
that, Lane. Yep. Councillor Mackay.
Question, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, question is, if you wish to move a separate motion for those points in the Regional Land Transport Committee that you want, I'd be willing to second that as direction of council. The 4 points you mentioned in the Regional Land Transport Committee item.
Yeah. Happy to take that motion, thinking they're my 4 points that I've been seeing and observing. Has anyone got any others they would like to add? If not, happy to take that motion. You move that they become part of the Regional Transport Committee, the submission to the Regional Transport Committee long-term plan. Councillor Flynn?
I'd second that.
Seconded. Any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Angus, you still on? Yep.
Yes, I've got a question,
Great.
if I may. Seeing we at the bottom of the Mayor's report, used to have Canterbury Water Management Strategy report on there, so councillors knew what was happening. I attended a river rating meeting the other day. I'm wondering if our delegate could give us a report on the shingle stacked up to annoy the people of Ashburton.
Or could we have a written report at our next council meeting in 2 weeks' time? Is it? Oh, which has to be in by Friday, which is 2 days. Or verbal now, do a verbal.
I can do a verbal now, or I can have a written report done by Friday. That's not a problem. But in brief, there was a meeting of the Ashburton Acton River rating area. By and large, the river is in good heart. There hasn't been a major event this year, but there is some concern that in Bland's Reach, the build-up of shingle is quite dramatic, and there was discussion about the capacity of that part of the river and would it overflow the stop banks and therefore be a risk to Ashburton town. Some people felt that it was, some people felt that it wasn't, but on a personal point of view, if it does breach the stop banks, then it will be quite catastrophic for this town. So it is something to be aware of. That's about it in brief, really.
Great. Actually, just thinking then, we have ECAN is coming to liaise with us the next wee while, and it's one of the items on the agenda to talk to them about. So, so no need for a formal report then. We'll take your report verbal and we'll discuss it further when the ECAN representative, the ECAN councillors turn up to discuss with it, because it's partially an ECAN issue. Councillor Wilson.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. My question is, where in the situation with our fortnightly meetings are these type of reports that Councillor Mackay spoke about? There's reserve board meetings, there's drainage board meeting, there's all sorts of other meetings that we're delegates at. Do we put in reports to include in the, because we're talking about the Mayor's report rather than the subcommittee reports or committees that councillors represented on. Since we used to get them on committees, when we had our committees, we got all those reports. Now at the full council, it's fairly brief, and we have those other reports, strategy reports, but they don't really cover that either.
The intention was that if it used to go to a committee, it should now come to council. So it should come to council if it used to go to a committee. So we're not trying to alter the flow of information to council and the community. We're just not doing it through those committees. So however we used to receive them, I'm sure we still do, they need to go on the next available council meeting agenda.
So there might be a space there called councillors' report on subcommittees they've attended which need to come back to council.
We used to get
Just put your,
some reserve board at that meeting, or you know.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't get any of that now.
That's activity reports, yeah. Right, Philippa?
I think what Councillor Wilson is referring to is that once we received from the various reserves their minutes, we put them on the website and made people aware of that, but we haven't brought reserve board minutes or hall board minutes other than, I was going to say, the Methven Mount Up Memorial Hall board minutes occasionally, but we haven't provided those through any committee agendas. But I can see a spot for this type of reporting being added into the agenda.
So you two can talk and sort out where it needs to be.
Yeah. The move to no committees in council was not intended to alter how the information flowed to you. So it's just simply a matter of it continuing to flow.
And no doubt we'll pick some other things up as we go through too, which we had before but not now, but we will capture.
But as Philippa said, they hadn't been going to committees for some time.
Yep.
So that's why they haven't come to council. It's not that we've altered.
Councillor?
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask, because 2nd of February I attended the biodiversity, Canterbury Council's biodiversity meeting in Christchurch, and I was wondering whether perhaps we've got a mayor's report just on this, have a section for councillor reports of these meetings we've gone to.
Yeah.
And I also wonder about the reserve board minutes. Could they not be put on Stella, because we don't know when they're all being held and having to go to the website all the time, but if they could be in a section on Stella, at least we can see them there.
So we'll have a discussion on that with Hamish and his team and see how we can capture the information that we require. Councillor Miller? Oh, Councillor Mackay, rather.
Oh, Mr Mayor, I'll test the meeting. I move that we have an item on the agenda called reports, and an explanation. The report would have to be in writing, not verbal, and so councillors could prepare themselves. So the motion would be that we have an item on the agenda, council agenda, called reports.
A seconder for that motion? Councillor?
No, I'm not going to second it. I just wanted to make a comment, but I can't. My light's gone. Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment. Is that not what the activity reports?
Sorry. You got a seconder? Right, we do have a second. We've moved in second now. Do you want to speak to it first, Angus?
It would have to be on the proviso, in my opinion, similar to your mayor's report, Mr Mayor. So if a councillor wished to report on something they'd been to, it would have to be in writing and meet the timeframes for the agenda. Yes, I was a bit naughty asking Councillor Latham that question, but he knew it was coming. So I think it could be riotous in the future if we were allowed open slather. I think having written reports in the reports item would actually add to the council meeting and the flow of information on what we attend to the public. It gets it out in the public anyway.
Yep, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I still think we get enough information about the reserve boards and the hall boards from the activity report, because more often than not, Claire has been to all of those meetings and can provide an update. But I think on the instances such as the biodiversity meeting, and also Councillor Cameron and I went to a climate change meeting where they're sort of out of the box or something that we wouldn't normally go to, a brief report similar to what we used to do when we go to an LGNZ conference or the rural and provincial would be fine. But I think adding all the minutes from every reserve board and hall committee when the summary on the activity board, reports, I think, are enough.
So we have a motion on the table. Councillor Cameron, you speak to it.
Just for clarification, I don't think Councillor Mackay is suggesting we add all the minutes. I think if we feel that it's an important a meeting that we attended, or there's something to add different to what has already been presented, that we include that as a meeting note.
I'm thinking if the motion is lost, we can ask the Chief Executive to give us a report on how we can encapsulate all those things we want into the meeting, rather than deciding here exactly what we want in. Let the report come back and guide us on what should be in. Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I'm not really sure if we should be doing it what has been proposed. I can see some councillors really using it a lot, others might not be. I think what Liz said, I feel me more comfortable with that. It normally came through committees, not always to the full council.
Okay, you've all spoken. Who wants to speak? Right to reply? Councillor Falloon, you haven't spoken. I just called for a right to reply. Have you got something? Away you go. Okay.
I think there's points on both sides here. Certainly I agree with Councillor McMillan that we don't have reports on every reserve and hall committee type of thing, because I think council officers are already doing a very good job in administering and reporting back on that sort of thing. But I think there are some meetings that councillors do attend that, such as ECAN inspired meetings and other meetings such as councillor went to as far as the Ashburton Huckatry water is concerned, which should be reported back. So it's really coming up with the definition of what type of committee report it comes back to council.
Yeah, I agree. Can we write a reply, Councillor Mackay?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't think I ever said that minutes and that would have to be reported back. I talked about councillors' reports from memory. I've never done this in my local government career before, but on the proviso that the Chief Executive will bring back a report, I recommend that councillors vote against the motion.
So on that, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Aye. Carried. Lost. Motion is lost, so the Chief Executive will bring a report back on those items. Number 4 on the Mayor's list is the Ashburton Squadron Air Training Corps. Obviously this was written pre-COVID skier of level 2, so that did not happen. And on the Mayor's diary, the 14th of February, the Ashburton Festival of Pipe Band Music, Councillor Letham deputised me there. Thank you, Councillor Letham. 15th of February, the Essential Freshwater Meeting with Ministers in Wellington did not happen because of COVID. The Minister Parker, who we were meeting with, comes from Auckland and cannot leave Auckland, so, but it will be rescheduled. And the Ashburton Aquatic Park Trust AGM, which is on this afternoon, I'll be an apology for that, so because I'll be here. So I'll move that we receive the Mayor's report. Second it.
I'll second.
Councillor McMillan. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. I now need to leave to do an appointment for half an hour, but Councillor Millen's going to take over. We've got 2 items of extraordinary business still to go, and to give Councillor McMillan time to come up to speed with that, she will break for a cup of tea and come back and do those items after that. Thank you.